everyone. Thank you so much. My name is Kaitlin Martin. I'm a senior intelligence analyst at Chainalysis. I have the honor today of talking to you about a very broad and very complex topic, which is North Korean IT workers. We have a lot to cover. Hopefully in the next 10 minutes, we will show you some of their on-chain laundering techniques. So let's start with a very oversimplified, basic overview of who the DPRK IT workers are and how they carry out their operations. So DPRK IT workers are located in a number of countries worldwide, primarily in China and in Russia, and they seek remote IT jobs at companies in the United States and Europe and all around the world. Of course, these companies don't know that they are in fact individuals from North Korea. They do this through facilitators like Chinyong IT Corporation, which is sanctioned by both the US and by South Korea. And they work for a number of different North Korean governmental agencies, from the General Reconnaissance Bureau to the Ministry of National Defense. And they funnel their funds to the North Korean regime to fund its activities, including its WMD and ballistic missiles programs. Now, because these IT workers work in the field of IT in companies that work in Web3 and crypto, very innovative industries, oftentimes they are able to have their salaries paid to them in cryptocurrency. And they will typically request that they have their salaries paid to them in stablecoins. Stablecoins are cryptocurrencies that are tied to real-world currencies, so they hold and maintain value, unlike other tokens like ETH or Bitcoin that might fluctuate in value. So they're paid in these cryptocurrencies, which eventually need to be cashed out and funneled to the regime for them to use it. But before they do this, they must launder their funds. And so this is what this presentation is going to focus on, how they actually go through this laundering process. So where do we get our data from on this topic? So we primarily get our data as reported by government agencies, including sanctions designations. And this data is really highly valuable because we can be very confident in it. So anything reported by a government agency, we are saying we are confident that this is in fact belonging to an IT worker or a facilitator. And then on the other side, we kind of have OSINT reporting. So reporting DPRK IT worker payment addresses, as well as addresses where DPRK threat actors have stolen funds in a hack has kind of become a game of sport in the OSINT world. And this is really rich data as well. The problem is that it's not verified. And so what I'm hoping to show you is how we can take this verified government data on DPRK IT worker activity and use that verified data to verify that unverified data by looking at the on-chain connections between these different cryptocurrency addresses. So how do we do it? How do we actually track this on-chain? So our first tactic is to find the consolidation points. DPRK IT workers consolidate their funds. So as you see on this slide here, we have three IT worker payment addresses represented by the brown circles on the left, and they are consolidating their funds into a single cryptocurrency address. So why would they do this? As I mentioned, a number of IT workers are operating under different facilitators like Chinyong IT Corporation. So you can imagine that some of these addresses that are paying into a single consolidation point are working for a single facilitator. Especially for IT workers who are operating in Russia and China, they might be physically located on the same job site. And so this consolidation is where IT workers located in the same physical location are funneling their funds into a single address. And then lastly, we know that IT workers often operate multiple aliases. So they're obviously using fraudulent identities to acquire this employment. And if you're going to operate a fraudulent identity, why don't you operate multiple? So this consolidation can possibly represent a single IT worker collecting its salaries from multiple remote IT jobs. So this here is a graph showing this consolidation on a larger scale. This is a screenshot from Chainalysis Reactor, which is our crypto tracing tool. And this is why it's important for us to track these consolidation addresses. So at the top, you have a collection of payment addresses, which have been verified by government sources. And then we've identified that consolidation point at the bottom. And as you can see, these consolidation points collect addresses active for years at a time. So on the far left, we have a IT worker payment address that hasn't been active for several years, but this consolidation point is also collecting payments from an address that was active just as of last month. So if you want to track this activity over time, you don't want to look specifically at the payment addresses, which are only active for a short period of time. You want to look for these bigger consolidation addresses that are collecting funds from multiple IT workers. So this is where it gets fun. So as I mentioned, the payment addresses in the previous slide were verified by government data and reported publicly, and we identified that consolidation point. So it stands to reason that other payments being made into that same consolidation point also represent DPRK IT worker payment addresses. And here we see the same large range of activity that we saw on the previous slide. We have an address that was active as far back as February of 2021, all the way up into an address that was active just as of this past Saturday when I was wrapping up this presentation. So these consolidation points are really highly valuable in helping us to track this activity over time and hopefully find IT worker addresses that are still active or recently active and still hold balances. And as I mentioned, these IT workers are typically paid in stable coins. And the advantage to investigators is that for stable coins, you can ask the issuer through a law enforcement action to freeze any balance that's left on an address that contains stable coins. And there's actually been some great success in this. Just last week, there was a DOJ announcement that they were able to seize $15 million in DPRK IT worker funds by freezing these stable coins. So the next thing that I want to talk about is how we can, that verification of the known IT worker addresses and also the other reported illicit activities of DPRK that's reported in open source. So in any illicit crime investigation, whether it's traditional crime, traditional finance, or in cryptocurrency, anytime that funds are from multiple crime types are commingled, it can sometimes make the investigation more complicated. But I would argue that in the case of DPRK, it actually is an investigation tool. So in this reactor graph, you can see these known DPRK IT worker addresses, and if you track those funds downstream to see where they end up, those funds end up in a wallet that received stolen funds from a hack that was reported as being carried out by DPRK in open source. So here, again, we're taking data that we're confident in, the reported DPRK IT worker addresses, seeing those funds commingled with a hack that we suspect North Korea carried out, but we're not sure about it, and we're adding confidence to that hypothesis. And this is what the on-chain analysis brings to the table in understanding these investigations and being able to definitively tie a hack or any sort of intrusion to DPRK. And we see this again and again. We see upstream and downstream from these DPRK IT worker addresses being commingled with these stolen funds that were carried out by actors who we suspect are DPRK, but we don't know to be true. Again, adding more confidence to these hypotheses. And then in this last section here, we're going to talk about the tactic of conducting ecosystem analysis. So making connections between the DPRK IT worker operations as well as other deeper DPRK cyber operations. So in the next slide or two, I'm going to talk about bridges. I'm from Pittsburgh, so I both love and hate bridges, and the same goes for crypto bridges. But just a quick explainer, crypto bridges are protocols that allow you to move tokens from one blockchain to the next. So you can take tokens that you hold on the Ethereum blockchain and transfer them over to Binance Smart Chain or Polygon or Avalanche. It's just creating a bridge from one blockchain to the next. And the great thing about bridges is there are bridge explorers. So just like blockchain explorers, where you're able to track cryptocurrency transactions in real time, a number of bridges have explorers available where you can track where tokens are moving from one blockchain to the next. So as an investigator, you can use a bridge explorer to see where the tokens have been moved to and continue to track the laundering patterns on the other side. And DPRK is notorious for this technique of using bridges. It's known as chain hopping, and it's a laundering tool. We see this again and again, not only with the DPRK IT worker addresses, but also with addresses that have received stolen funds from one of their many crypto hacks. And so I've been spending a lot of time tracking DPRK IT worker addresses as they're bridged from one blockchain to another. And we do see a lot of the commingling of funds that we were just talking about, where on one side of a bridge, we see a DPRK IT worker address, and then those bridge funds end up being commingled with stolen funds from a DPRK hack. But what I find really interesting is when funds are swapped from these IT worker addresses to the Bitcoin blockchain. And why is that interesting? It's because the Bitcoin blockchain is where we see some of DPRK's more deep cyber operations. So ransomware attacks, extortion campaigns, but also the purchasing of cyber infrastructure. They use Bitcoin to buy things like domain registration and VPN services. And so what you see in this graph here is these DPRK IT worker funds are bridged, and if you track those funds downstream, they end up at a VPN service provider called Astral, which our CTI folks in the room here know that is prolifically used by DPRK in their cyber operations. So here what we're doing is we're drawing a connection between these DPRK IT workers and deeper cyber operations. And this is kind of where ecosystem analysis comes in. So we have all of these different DPRK threat actor groups with all of these different names that are very hard to remember. You have the IT workers, you have the actors who are carrying out these prolific cryptocurrency hacks, and then you have the actors carrying out ransomware attacks and extortion campaigns. And when you're able to look at this on-chain and see how the funds flow between these different threat actors and understand the services that they rely upon to carry out these attacks and launder their funds, you can really see the DPRK threat actor ecosystem holistically, which opens up many more opportunities for disruption. Thank you so much today for listening to me. I would love to chat with you during the break, so come find me, and thank you.